We begin today in Nigeria, a nation of over 120 million people, 250 different languages, 36 states, 776 local governments covering 923,766 square kilometers. A nation whose history includes the Yoruba kingdoms of Oyo, the Igbo kingdoms of Nri, the Edo kingdom of Benin, and the Hausa states, Nupe, and much more. Footprints takes us to a town 6 degrees north and 6 degrees east of the equator. Some will say at the very heart of the continent of Africa. On the southern shores of the historic river Niger sits what some would describe as a once sleepy town, gently reawakening. Asaba overlooks the commercial city of Onitsha, known as the gateway to the east. Asaba lies on the historic river Niger, a vital link since earliest times between the north and sub-Saharan Africa. Asaba is today a bustling city with the trappings of a modern Mecca in the making, the capital of the oil-rich Delta State. The once quiet rest of past years in this town has given way to bustling traffic and rapid construction. From the multi-million naira sports stadium to an airport of worth being planned, Asaba is coming back from decades of seeming slumber and fast attracting the young and the daring from all walks of life. And they are here to stay. Asaba people have always traveled far and wide. So the current exodus of rich minds and able hands has not passed Asaba by. It's a fact that almost every home in Asaba has a son or a daughter residing in some nation in Europe or North America. The banks have certainly made a killing from the business of cash transfers from abroad. But today, both in the political and traditional circles, vestiges of recent day corruption and greed are facing a daunting challenge as the spirit of this once capital of Nigeria awakens, slowly but surely. Who are these Asaba people? What is Asaba all about? What are the important footprints that cross this now modern city? What history lies here? What do we need to know about it? Join us, beginning with the correct names, which is Ahaba. The stories behind its origin are diverse and interesting.
How does one determine the origin of a particular class of people?
Dr. David Maduemezia, a renowned medical practitioner and indigene of Asaba,
Obanya Roboa. See, you have Ophelia Ozelia. What an adventurous journey. Nabano Nanya. We run a sport Boasa Bakata. The Bezia. Sport Boasa Bakata. On your room, one neighbor. Manofia. Moisi. Azuduko. Omalakwazo. I mean, Olivier Philip, never busy, settle down. Yeah, that is a word. The boy was the name of ya. All I told you,
Ezeanyanwu, the handsome head of the royal line of Ezechima, ancestors of the numerous peoples and cities west of Asaba. His looks and excesses are said to have earned him banishment from his people. He eventually settled here in Asaba amongst the people of Uboma, said to be the son of the founder of the people of Achala, a town east of the Niger River. Ezeanyanwu prospers amongst the people of Uboma and earns the title of Odigbe, a title which points to one of the current peoples of Asaba, today, Idumo Odigbe.
Ezeanyanwu abaze ufu enemy the chief ndibiri ndupukwaise walo washine but Ezeanyanwu was organized settled on a stadium. Yeah, Ezeanyanwu one of the princes in the no place settled eventually obviously by Idumo Odigbe or happen that stadium side there's a Idumo Odigbe. I mean, there's a neighbor wire, Alapo Anyaba, all you have that, Anyaba.
Nebisi's father, Onojobo, came from the Igala people of current-day Kogi State in Nigeria, West Africa. Well received by Ezeanyanwu, he and his people, his fellow refugees, flourished in the land as his knowledge of special herbs and the occult made for a good partnership with Ezeanyanwu. It's even said that he knew the secret language of the birds and animals. All for this, he earned the title of Ikenga.
So Ezeanyanwu, something like that. So you're a prince Asaba. About to buy me, about a logo top of the regime, about Mandy Babagi Cruzan Nabawa.
More focus is laid on the story of the progenitor of the Asaba people, Nebisi, who after landing at the fertile shores of what is now known as Cable Point, proclaimed Ahabam, which in Asaba means I have chosen well. A fascinating romantic adventure story which ends well. Nebisi takes Ujom, a wife from his father's people, in Igala. His lineage eventually overshadows that of Ezeanyanwu to give us the shape of Asaba people today. Now, how is that for a thrilling movie script? Action, mysticism, adventure, passion, love, and romance. We can even throw in a little King's Court drama for the balance. What could be missing? Is there more to this drama? What lies behind the meaning of these stories?
Yes. I believe that the history that is commonly narrated to us is just a disguised form of the Hebrew history. First of all, some people are reported to have descended from a man called Nebisi. Anybody who understands the Hebrew language will discover that Nebisi and Moses have the same meaning metaphysically. So it is quite possible, yes, that they simply wanted to disguise their origin and so use different symbols, And just as Moses led his kith and kin across the Red Sea to the Promised Land, so Nebisi led Asaba people across the river Niger from Niger to the present location of Asaba.
Can it be that there is a link between the Hebrews of biblical times and the Asaba people of today? Can Asaba people be descendants of one of the lost tribes? Dr. David Maduemize believes that there are striking similarities between the practices of ancient Hebrews and those of Asaba people. More on this as Footprints continues. One thing a visitor to Asaba will immediately recognize is what seems to be an endless parade of dancers and dancing. A taxi driver from another state once exclaimed that he had never seen a more joyful place, where the drums never cease to play day after day. Since becoming a state capital, the drums still play in Asaba, though much of the dancing has been relegated to the more traditional areas, the Obes or the Ebos of Asaba.
That's Ajaji. The smallest boy there is Onaje.
While the chronicle of Ahaba ancestry reads like a chapter of the Christian Bible, it's fascinating to see much of the history and heritage come to life in art through sculpture pieces strategically located all over the city. Nebisi's wife, Ujom, gave birth to One, Ezeomunne, and Ojife. Ojife was female. One's wife, Ndo, gave birth to Ezene. His second wife, Oboa, gave birth to Ajaji and Onaje. Ezeomunne took a wife from Ila, and she bore him Uboma and Ago. Being a patrilineal people, the lineage is drawn from the fathers in Ahaba. Eyagba, a son of the second of Nebisi's wife's lineage, is today lost due to slavery and wars. What remains of Achala relocated to a separate place some distance from Ahaba. This leaves, in order of seniority, Ezene, from whom we have Umueze, Uboma, from whom we have Ubomanta, Ago, from whom we have Umo Ago, Ajaji, from whom we have Umuaji, Onaje, from whom we have Umu Onaje, as the 5 Ebos of Ahaba. Each of the 5 Ebos of Asaba are semi-autonomous, with a Diokpa, who is the head of the community, and who must be able to trace his lineage directly to Nebisi. As with most African towns and cities, traditional life is closely intertwined with the not-so-traditional. Modernity walks hand in hand with traditional ways. The footprints of history lie in plain sight for both visitors and indigents, often unacknowledged. Development and modernity have their challenges, of course, and with the influx of more and more people into Asaba, new stories are woven and the past slowly but surely slips into oblivion. But Asaba is not so new to development or being of global importance. Within this awakening city lies a bedrock of history. Yes, Asaba was once the capital of Nigeria. History is filled with chronicles of men and women in search of a new world, one then unknown to their local people. Across Africa, many Europeans are known to have come, some in search of knowledge and others in search of glory. For good or for bad, Asaba has played host to some of these travelers over time, and footprints of their journey is set in the sands of this historic city. The famous river Niger runs through the spine of Asaba, its cool waters bringing many travelers to the shores of Asaba land. In search of expansion, or as some would say, purely to satisfy knowledge and curiosity, several of these explorers traveled to what is the southern part of Nigeria, the lower Niger as it was known then. Footprints of these journeys can be seen in various places in Asaba.
Behind me here is one of the tourist attractions, somewhere that has become famous internationally, known for many things. There is a monument here that you can actually see, and behind it you can see the Niger, the river Niger in the background. History says that this is where the Lander brothers, the famed Lander brothers of British heritage, landed, and this is where the Asaba people met them.
It's interesting to note that these were missionaries, these were people who had come from the British continent.
Today it is now a tourist attraction where you have different people from across the world come to take a look, to see the spot.
In the distance as well, you can see some of the grave sites, the tombs which are still remaining. And these are the missionaries who had died from malaria.
Initially, most of these were covered by bushes and forest, but today it's been made in
a state tourist site where people can come to visit this.
From what we understand, the British government makes a point of duty to visit these grave sites anytime there is a new ambassador to Nigeria from Britain. The 1800s saw a flurry of first encounters with Europeans on Asaba soil.
So Niger company or UAC kind of United African Company. All as I have, even now was a branch. My former company with Niger. Open God the Niger. All of the business within it.
On this spot as I stand right now, behind me over there and in the building right in front here is where the old UAC building used to be. The UAC is a name that was later changed, that initially used to be the Royal Niger Company.
It's interesting to note that this piece
of what is left of this architecture is still here in Asaba.
Down here are the two warehouses that used to be the UAC warehouses. Right here and right here.
I presume that MYSI Enterprise may be from that period or from that time.
If you look down here, you can see the Niger. So they did have direct access to the Niger.
Trade follows the flag. That's right.
The Onitsha Bridge is over to the side. And these mango trees, of course, look like they could tell a tale or two.
So Royal Niger Company now, what an local ever got a Royal Niger Company. So local expenses, what was the trading posts, Asabadia, Burutua, for Cadu as well.
I don't know what else this place has been used for, but for now, seem to be what is left of the Royal Niger Company, the UAC's influence, or to be more precise, their physical presence here in Asaba. There are some who appreciate the history of the colonial involvement in Asaba, and there are those who abhor it, because they feel it was a time when Asaba was robbed of its tradition, robbed of its history, robbed of its heritage.
And sometimes I find that episode of our history distasteful. So I usually choose not to study it, yes, I thought that a lot of our customs and traditions were ravaged and vandalized by the colonial masters in order to be able to subjugate our ancestors and rule them for such long periods. Yes.
For instance, in 1888, Asaba was bombarded by the British under the pretext of stopping slavery. By 1889, the British administrators succeeded the Royal Niger Company with the Union Jack, hoisted on January the 1st.
Right there, the building there, was probably the administrative building where the offices of the staff of the Royal Niger Company stayed. It's still intact. In fact, the windows, the old colonial architecture is still there. The steps, and possibly even the paint structure. From here you can look out all the way down and see the River Niger. In full tide, the waters go from the other side all the way across. I believe at least maybe 2 miles, 2 to 3 miles across. Must have been a sight for them to have been here, far from their land. Obviously, we ask the question, what were they here for? And we ask again, were they colonizers or were they developers? This is part of the history of Asaba.
One needs no convincing that this building has had its fair share of time and stories. This is the Mungo Park building in Asaba today, named after an English explorer who, from what we gather, never really lived here.
Behind me is one of the oldest post offices in Asaba. This post office has been here. This was the first post office that was set up. And if you can look behind me, you can see that to the left-hand side of it is a newer post office that currently is probably where it's being used, but the older one, I believe, is now more of a relic.
The relics of the Royal Niger Company are all over Asaba. "14 years earlier, in 1876, the Church Mission Society, CMS, had planted missions in Asaba and from here spread further inland.
Even when I opened one Niger, the missionary society, it entails a lot of sacrifice. With sense of mission, with something to achieve, a kind of sense of mission.
Behind me is the new cathedral, the new Anglican cathedral for the Anglican Diocese of Asaba. This is a huge edifice that's just been built, commissioned, and is currently in use. There is a huge Anglican communion that is here in Asaba. This cathedral behind me is a testament to the faith of the people, the Christian faith of the people. And as I said, it's interesting to see the intertwine between the Christian indoctrination of people as well as the traditional indoctrination of people. Asaba has that unique intertwine. And in some cases they do overlap, in some places there are different shares. But one thing is for certain, this church does get full. And it does get full of people who believe and who trust in Christ as their Lord and Savior, who are Anglican.
Today, the Anglican Diocese of Asaba is a massive one. In 1977, the Asaba Archdeaconry was constituted, and Bishop Nwosu was installed. Today, the Anglican Church can boast of a very strong fellowship. Certainly not to be outdone, the Catholic Church, which had earlier in 1884 set up the Roman Catholic Vicarage of West Africa, moved its headquarters to Asaba in 1918.
It's about 6:30 a.m. this morning, and we're here in the Catholic Church, St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Asaba. This church we see behind me right now has been around for quite a while. It was one of the first of the main cathedrals that was built here in Asaba. In fact, the only main cathedral. This church has a lot of history. Anyone who is from Asaba has been here for either one event or the other. And so many families have been born, weddings, burials, birth ceremonies, all sorts of things. But this church is definitely one of the main historical landmarks here in Asaba in Delta State in the southern part of Nigeria.
Behind me, we're on the grounds of the Catholic Mission. Some of these buildings have been around for decades. This is one of the places where the Catholic Mission was set, and I believe behind me is the old mission house. If we move a bit further, hopefully we'll be able to see it. I believe the convent is also here, where a lot of the nuns were trained, and they also established schools that came out of this place. There's a building, a new building that's been built behind me, as there is more development with the Catholic Mission here in Asaba.
You can see the building there, see the architecture of the building, and realize that it's been quite some time. You can see right here behind me, that building behind. This is the old Catholic Mission. The building, still being kept, of course, for sentimental purposes. Doesn't look like it's still being used. But this, I believe, has been around since about 1886. And these buildings they stand the test of time, but nonetheless, well, time has certainly tested this building. But many people have come to worship those of the Catholic faith at this point. And a lot of missionaries who came to this place came from different areas of the world and settled here for a short while in Asaba, and some even died here and others moved on from here.
Today, one cannot speak about the Catholic Church in Asaba without the mention of the first Asaba man elevated to the priesthood, Very Reverend Monsignor Oboko. Today, Reverend Father Chukwuma, a bastion of the Catholic Church in Asaba, has been here for a while, shepherding the Catholic congregation.
We're talking about day-to-day worship here. I can say that if you see where people are coming for morning masses, you know that in our time people still believe strongly in God. You see where they come, no matter the rain, no matter the weather, you see them coming. Some at the express, some even pass some other parishes just to attend mass.
Just to attend.
Many churches in Asaba set up Western-type schools all across the south. Today, many still excel in educational standards. With the influx of Christianity, an interesting balance seems to exist in Asaba. From marriage ceremonies to burial rites, there is both a traditional side and a Western side. In a wedding, there is the traditional wedding, known as wine carrying, Ibumaya, after which there is the church, Christian, or white wedding. For burials, this changes a bit. First comes the church burial, or the Christian burial, the interment. Then there is the traditional funeral, or inyozu, as it is called. Here lies a key factor to understanding the Asaba people, and to some, unraveling secrets of the past. It's no surprise that so many eminent and distinguished persons came from Asaba. A widely held fact is that Asaba has one of the oldest democratic systems in the world, an indigenous system of government based on the age grade representation.
You can see that the community of Asaba people, unlike many other communities in Nigeria, it's not a monarchy. The people have a system that resembles some form of republicanism. Yes.
Democracy or demo. Etonosi omundo ne mala kwazima. Abo monarchy. Dike to obara obenisime. Ukusira imationo.
It's not only republicanism. There is also a kind of indigenous democracy, yes, inside the republics, the small republics that make up the large community of Asaba people, yes.
Monarchy, republican in nature. Monarchy. Iki kubwa do kwide yo mesije bezo iki age kubwa do no vision ife mele chukuta yakaga ya masira jogba kusira owo dinwe je bobodo yibo okuga horere ojo hegu akwọ ọ bụ for ill health ya bụ ife dị iche iche dịka ebido fụ kpaba alọ na all the entitled to Okenile, including everything. So, democracy in the real interpretation of it.
Yes, there's an age grade representation, but fundamentally, most issues are embarked upon after a consensus has been reached. Any issue that arises in the community is debated by the whole community that are of a particular accepted age group. For example, in the Ogbe, people of Ichokwa, Utuhaza, and Ochokoloma are the ones entitled to attend community meetings.
Age grade and article from 58, but the four groups. Article the last one about 58. So yeah, must say, I want to do four of them. One about to So. Ilu otoraza ilu go ifaji mede move iya so na church in fact one jozi one 12 one me vendoza otoraza 58 years minimum on the 4 grades after gabani zo na zo kutasia asindo toraza gabani zo I was one already if abotanozo or execute well Kazi equivalent to
Parliament or
Parliament about Parliament.
But generally, we have nothing like government and opposition. Yes, the people attempt to reach a consensus on such issues. It's unlike many of our neighboring communities where there are hereditary monarchies. So in that way, the Asaba people are totally different from the communities around them.
Yes.
this has always been so. We have it that on history, there was a time there was what they called Ibabweze, yes. And if you look at the names in Asaba, like Ezobom, Ezubome, Ezumune, Ezafadia, it appears that these are monarchs, patterned along the ancient monarchies. And these are monarchs that have ruled the community of Asaba at some period in history, before the revolution, which now brought the Asaba system of government into the community. Yes.
This man you see here is called Obinaro, the founder of this village, born by Ago. Understand me? So he is the founder of this village. He's a great man, very great man as you see him so. He bring this Asaba for Asaba. All the chieftaincy title in Asaba here is brought by this man. Nobody else. Anything done in Asaba here, oh no, you will, this and that is done by this man. So that's why he become a great man. Understand me? In Asaba here. It's from this Umobina village in the Umago quarters, Asaba. Understand me? Thank you.
I also want to mention that this great Obinalo was the one, he wanted Asaba to be a monarchical system. So he went to the Benin to study this monarch system. But before he returned, there was a sort of sabotage. Many people took Eze title in Asaba. So meaning that they didn't have one chief, one Asaba, one king in Asaba. So when he came back, he was very furious to find that many people are taking the Eze title. So he now cursed some of them for sabotaging him, because you know what it meant to trek to Benin those days. It took taking many months and trek back only to find out that the system has collapsed. That was how he brought some of these titles, Onoi title, Oloto title, Ezubo title, and then the various other various titles. And that is why any Asaba from any quarter in Asaba today is greeted Ago, because this they originated from Ago. So whether you are from Eze, you are from Umueze, once you become Asaba, you are greeted Ago, to show that he brought it, yes.
And then currently you have that Asaba run somewhat of the parliamentary system.
Yes, that's there's not one king, and that is why Asaba runs the parliamentary system, where you don't have you have the Asaba as the head, quite all right, but you find that the quarters are almost semi-autonomous, and they can take a few decisions on their own. They own their own land and so on and so forth. That makes them semi-autonomous. But in the long run, they will converge in Asaba's place to take a decision affecting the entire community, the Asaba town. That is the situation.
So what's the greeting that is greeted?
The greeting here is Ago. Ago. That's the greeting. Yes, to reflect that, of course, the descendants of Ago. That's the situation.
And I think that even before the French embarked on their Republican Revolution, Asaba people have experienced their own revolution long before the Europeans started to have some form of Republican or democratic revolution. Yes.
Asaba people's titles are primarily Nkpisi, Alo, and Ichieze. The Nkpisi title, or the Nkpisi, this is more of a rite of passage into adulthood for young boys, conducted when there are enough young men to warrant a ceremony. An Nkpalo, which is the Alo title holder, is called Obweshi. The title confers on the recipient a higher social status. He can be recognized with a white feather on his cap. He carries an elephant tusk called Otolaka, which can be blown like a horn, and a fan, Azuzu, which is an insignia of office. and position. The Eze title is the highest in Asaba. A holder is greeted Obi Igwe and takes the highest position in any gathering. An Obi usually carries a small elephant tusk or tulaka, a ribbon tied to his leg, and Nza, a donkey's tail, a purple or red cap decorated with eagle feathers.
Ndị akwa title owu bụ ese ka ọ bụ onye ụmụ ọmụmụ na-eme ndị mbụ na-agba afa na adalatrin ụmụ ọmụmụ na-eme onye mmadụ ife ada agaghị n'ụwa masị ikpu ogbu ka ife gabara ya so na ọ bụ ese ka ọ bụ. It's part of appeasement of the gods to usher in prosperity.
Eminent persons who are deemed to have performed worthy services to the community can be conferred the title of Olinzele by the Asaba of Asaba. Omo is the title which a woman can take in the community. The holder is greeted Obuefi because she has to slaughter a cow on installation. As the leader or queen of the women of Asaba, she is assisted by a council known as Otuomu. Ezugo is a title that's held for a period of 10 years and coincides with that of the Otuhaza. The holder is addressed as Aiwe. The Asaba of Asaba holds the office for a lifetime once he is chosen by the people. The position rotates in order of seniority following the sons of Nebisi, Ezene, Ubomanta, Ago, Ajaji, and Onaje. More than the traditional lineage, more than the fascinating legends of the origin of Asaba, many scholars and commentators have sought written evidence of these legends, only to find that much of Asaba's ancient history was oral tradition. But some others have dug even deeper and taken the time to reflect on what seems to be the open but hidden secret of Ahaba people.
The tradition of Asaba people has a lot to offer Nigerians. Not only Nigerians, probably humanity. Yes. In terms of the meaning of its traditions and the art of good government. Yes.
We often see photographs of men of valor lining the walls of museums, hero halls and churches across the world. Men and women whose achievements remind us of our history, our heritage. Millions are made in tourism to the Basilica in Italy, the Colosseum in Rome, the war memorials in England. The opera celebrates with drama and music the stories of the past and the present. Here in Asaba, a unique blend of high drama and history plays out more often than thought. There are no theater halls, no posh seats, no curtain calls, no museum guides, explaining art for art's sake. But here, there is music. There are real actors, and the seats are reserved for those involved. Most of all, there is history and heritage. Asaba tradition, like many in Africa, is woven into very serious rites of passage. The most elaborate being the burial rites, an interplay of history, religion, art and folklore. A very richly interwoven tapestry of life, death and balance. Here the actors do not act, but are going through an all-too-real emotion. But playing out around them is the chronicle of history and often mystery of Asaba life, its past, its beliefs and worldview. A drama that serves as the central code to the structure of Asaba, its traditional government, its titles, and its view of life.
Well, one has to be an indigene to really understand, yes, some of the rituals that surround, say, the burial rites. Yes. Now, people coming from outside are inclined to think that these are some of the hocus pocus rituals of pagan people. But far from it. Yes. Far from it. When we now fully come to understand the meanings of all these rituals, which span a period of about 12 days in the case of a mature adult, then we will have more respect for what these rituals represent. And in a nutshell, I think the burial rituals represent in drama the story about the creation of the world, the origin of man, the destiny of man, death, and the resurrection of man. Yes. That is what is represented in a dramatic form in the burial rites. Yes. Yes.
Can it be true that the earliest Asaba settlers wove within the traditions of Asaba an intricate and fascinating drama of life and afterlife? If so, what was their purpose?
One of the most sacred rituals of Asaba people concerns their egugu. Yes. And when the rituals of this cult are being performed, you will hear the cultists chant Yah-ho-ho, Yah-ho-ho. Yah-ho-ho is a Hebrew word. That is the Hebrew name of God, the ancient Hebrew name of God, Yahweh. See that? But that is what the Asaba people chant when somebody is about to depart finally from this earth plane, when the Egugu ritual is being performed. And not many people know that. It is possible that our ancestors have entrenched this in this ritual, because it is commonly believed among religious people that everything will return to its origin. Yes.
Many societies have been known to weave within art and culture secrets to the past and often their origin. Is this the case with the Asaba people? What stories are told in these rites? Will we discover them? The burial rites are broken into two segments, the first burial and the second. And they are as follows. Within the first, Ibunatozu. This is the bringing back of the body by the Okulagwe with the Okanga. Cannon shots commence the ceremony. Umuada Imuno assemble and their daisi ties the ribbon on the head of the Diokba and Ada. Then there is Ikbaibudu. This is done by the Otu Haza of the Ebo, who assemble at the burial place of the deceased. Prayers and blessings are said with kola nut and any monetary gifts shared. In the past, a more mythical version of this takes place with the weaving of an actual structure during a rite which invokes the supposed spirit of the deceased, acting as a trap to hold the spirit in the process of assisting it on its journey to the other realm. Iguini. This is when the grave is dug. This is usually the job of the Okulagwe of the Ebo. Ikuleozu. Another one of the rites which echoes the rite of ancient Egypt is the Ikuleozu. Here, the Okulagwe of the community assist the relative with placing the body in the coffin. The Umuada, the women of the village, now gather round in a circle and food items are placed in the coffin. This is believed by some to assist the spirit of the deceased on its journey beyond. EIC. During this rite, the spouse is placed momentarily lying head to foot on the cover of the burial coffin. This is believed to be the final termination of the marriage between the deceased and his or her spouse. Songs led by a traditional flute called the Okpokolo accompany the interment, and 24 hours later a purification ceremony is carried out to cleanse the home and brings to an end what is generally termed the first burial. Today, not many Asaba people opt for the traditional burial ceremony. For those who do, many modifications have definitely been made, with a more Christocentric view in mind. The second stage of the burial rites promises more drama and even more mysteries. Heralded by cannon shots which bring to mind the military honors bestowed on soldiers who have fought a good fight. The second burial begins, assembling the Umuada, the women of the village. The ceremonial white ribbon is tied on the Ada and the Diokwa, the princess and the prince, so to speak. If the deceased is a woman, the Ada mourns loudly in her ancestral home for all to hear. There is much to be said about the beat of the Egwuata. Some have said it resembles the beating heart. One thing is for sure, the rhythm is indeed enlivening. For those who have experienced the power of African rhythms to move your feet, this is certainly one good example. Legend has it that the Egwuata was taught by a bird, Okolo Isile, which descended from the sky onto a big tree in Asaba. It beat its wings, singing and dancing to the rhythm of Egwuata for many years, at which end it fell and died of exhaustion. Since then, the Asaba people have learnt this beat. Ibailo. This small carnival-like dance is led by the Ada with other women and the Umuada behind. One thing to note, this segment is a serious workout for those who are not used to it. Maybe a testament to the stamina of Asaba women as a whole.
This is one of the rites in the latter part of a funeral ceremony that's going on right now. And behind me, we'll have someone to explain to us what exactly is going on and some of the traditional rites that take place during the funeral rites, something that Asaba is known for. And also one of the things we would like to show you is some of the sharing on the portioning of different portions of meat. There's a goat that's been slaughtered here today, and out of these portions of meat, several people will get their share.
Traditionally, we have a red capsule. So the village sends me to take this one to his house. This one belongs to him.
I don't see them get it. What not part of our chief where the next day, more dying in it. I got a mile go, map on me. Boseke, Adabasiari came over here. I tell you no. They say you know. Indian Nebetata, I'm involved so much. So I may say it is you know. The following day, I won't have for. Again, it's your quenta. Ah, Tata kind of two quenta. Uquenta and it's your Yana Gosina, Euhaba, Gapo. So I just say you have blown your contact, Makeuga have I put it. But say you got for so they do. Before you get quarter, you have one new club with boys where there are possibly 2 hours of weather, no club. I was easy, and never money. What the best yes, I put the best I got a quarter that day, but so was I a quarter? It was a lamb, and living in the way I lamb. Yeah, but I put everything. Don't know quarter about it. I'm having with him. Yavna, Tobago, Dina Munyaka, Kuanabago, Yanika, see where we go. Then the next
no specific amount.
But these are coins, I guess, not notes.
Yes, right, coins.
And all these are poured here, and actual children come down here to different people.
From all villages.
From all the different villages. Yes. So anybody being buried from any village comes around and they pour the money and everybody goes. And it's called Iyaigo.
Years ago, about 5 o'clock, and I said, Pozia, Alanozino, Tifuzia Mosioria, Guaptilo, Telezio, Rivaza, Amajanko, Guana, that's Mosioria. Then Munya, Guana, Pozia, Yakin, I had to come a cambo, only on our money, Gambo. You can walk about a small girl or a young lady. About a holiday. I have a full family people. Hala, dear. My own necessary, no, we can now. Malot was possible. Malogany, Nine, Oblonia Calagoni, or Simba, Calagoni, which is yours on any other one. Rooming for no one in Nanya, so no one would dear.
All of these things are an integral part of Asaba tradition and a part of the dramatization. It is a dramatization of the circle of life that is part of a burial ceremony in Asaba, of the Asaba people's culture.
It's a curious thing to see the influence of Christianity in several of the rites in Asaba. there certainly has been a refocus for many from what may have been prayers to deities to prayers to God and Jesus Christ. While many have understood the importance of the history involved in the rites and learned to modify tradition to suit growth, some have decided to leave tradition altogether, and yet others.
So, if the Hebrews want to return to Yahweh, then the Hebrews, that is the Hebrews of Palestine, then the Hebrews of Asaba also want to return to Yahweh. So I think if we look at these areas, we will see that it is possible that these people are the same.
The Asaba tradition plays out its history in more than the burial rites. Marriage ceremonies and other rites are a huge part of what it means to be from Asaba. In spite of the expense, in spite of the work involved and the personal conflicts often experienced, Asaba people are quite proud of their heritage and history.
I have 93 years, about 93 days. So a lot of achievement has been recorded.
July 1967, the Biafra War was on the way in the southern part of Nigeria. Asaba was to become an unwilling victim in more ways than one.
It's a very strange event, very strange event. We as Asaba people practically knew nothing about the causes of the war, but yet we bore the brunt.
Logo declared secession. I place an embargo. And also the war that I want to call. Yeah, GGO Star Valley. Yeah, but World War started. Yeah, but recommendation. Yeah, but Premier. I will to call Prime Minister. Oh, when do you know? I don't know. Wow, Wajewa, Trowewa, Wakalagonam's Lieutenant Colonel, the freeway. One about an army, Wakalago, Makoga, Takama Bajiva. So, indeed, way about one child about that Zalaka. You want to know about the Zafran the persons, that's not Asaba and the Benin. Ogo ni ojukwa sese na chataza ndabina na chataza wabia because I was make out in the Anambra connecting the link bridge here. The federal troops or federal government about take over the bridge. This side of it, they will barricade there, barbed wire and another. Not federal government, federal might. They were using federal might. So they take control of this bridge. They were foreign soldier never. They were foreign soldier in psychology. What I got when I change the bridge. So one day the word. What will I don't know? I gave them wanted to involve a large proportion of Nigeria. What to support one I never. Yeah, all go was I don't know when whatever happens. I get with sympathy with Colonial also 1 year over. What was our support from that point? It was so we brought a sympathy about Michigan Bridge. About that point, Kakak is sympathy. Quimo too. It's like this Phillips shop that also is about oh yes. So the calculate point of communication and the Anambra and the Biafra so neighbor even they was on neighbor they were I mean why hate you if I always do it take a mano papa if I'm will whether I need a double 7 years they Biafra Makaimana once one cut to go off was if anyway I will advise you So what can I leave and what can I put a book I believe we can communicate in the Biafra communication from that point. That came out of this new view way. All post office. A book, telephone operator. This is telephone operator or a book. I mean, when you work like a book, you have a telephone operator. This is what I have. Na post office said, Biafra. I might take this advantage. No one or like our troops on a bridge never it's never. But take that question about ya. What your book is your Biata Batalaban, Aka 11 p.m. 11 p.m. cross the Batanava. But that's if I was of me. Well, can you go away to your way? If I was of me, well, disconnect, destroy communication. Telephone operation does destroyer on the Biafra. Whatever. Destroyer telephone link. Pia Kotoza Asaba completely off on the world. So what is that safe? Now carry on the assignment here.
Where there is a river, there is travel, and hence history. And the history of Asaba is in so many ways tied to the river Niger, which runs along the spine of this historic city. From antiquity to more recent times, this historic river has served as a transporter, bringing many stories to its Asaba shores. The history of Asaba is in so many ways tied to the river Niger, which runs all the way from Futajalan down through the spine of this historic city. We take a trip across the Niger, across time and history, to share in the adventure of the Asaba ancestors, the adventure of the early travelers in search of the mouth of the Niger, where it flows into the Atlantic Ocean, the tension and fortitude of the Biafran soldiers who found their way through the Niger to Asaba and beyond. Watch this experience and share with us. See for yourself what lies on the other side of the Niger. Travelers from all parts of the world have passed through this river, this very place, in search of a home, glory, victory, hope, and for some, a new life. As we cross the Niger from Asaba, the town of Onono lies directly ahead. In some parts, it must be at least 40 to 50 feet deep and possibly more.
Out there far in the horizon, you can see the Niger Bridge. And that is Niger right there. And that part of it is Asaba. Going all that way, we're heading up Nigeria, way into Lokoja.
In some areas, it's much more shallow, as you can see ahead. In full tide, the water is at least another 50 feet deep. There is something very pristine about the simplicity of this area of the Niger. And it causes me to wonder what history lies beneath these waters at this very spot. In fact, what history has passed through these waters?
Onono Island.
Yeah.
So on island, not be say.
It used to be farm settlement before, but it's little bit developed now. There's a lot of
People living there.
Yeah.
What do they do there?
Farmers. They are farmers.
They are farmers. So these are an island. There's nothing connecting it to anything else.
an island that it extends a lot to the other side of Otuocha.
Towards where?
Otuocha.
Otuocha.
Yeah.
So where are you two going?
We're heading
Oh no. Looks like you're getting ready for a party, or did you go for a party? I think you go find something for that side. Fish there where they wait you.
We're about to go and look for.
You go find fish. Yeah. Lattice pair. When you carry your net well, tie and well. The fish not pass.
Oh no, the island on the other side of Asaba. These huge trees create a natural shade for the weary farmer. Green and fertile from the waters of the Niger, it's obvious why farming and fishing are the indigenous calling here. Life here seems quite simple. Like most islands across Africa, kids here do not need an Olympic-sized swimming pool to cool off from the tropical sun. They have the Niger, and they learn to navigate its often treacherous currents in a canoe or by hand. Standing here, it makes sense why starry-eyed Western explorers were often a disturbance to their way of life. One cannot help but wonder, what will be the fate of the Niger in years to come? Will these waters still be calm, historic, or will its shores be filled with boaters and jet skis here for a vacation? I even tried and succeeded in getting a cell phone signal during the ride across. It seemed almost an aberration. As the sun sets, I feel a sense of timelessness here. Something about being between places. A sense of journey, so to speak. One which I would advise any visitor to Asaba to experience. The crossing of the Niger River brings up memories of more than ancestors, explorers and colonizers.
This used to be a one-laner in the past, Abby. It was lane both ways. Here on the side we see the farms where they sell dry stockfish and yams.
Today, there are more ways to cross the Niger. As more development came to Asaba, another imposing sight is the true gateway to the east, the Niger Bridge. Over 3 miles long, this engineering feat was built by the federal government of Nigeria in 1965 at a cost of about £5 million. Talk about a good use of money. Much, it seems, needs to be learned from the past. It links the west to the eastern part of Nigeria. And from here, many came to settle in Asaba.
As you can see, most of the trucks here are laden with goods. Behind me is the engineering feat which we know as the Niger Bridge. This bridge is one of the main commercial hubs that links the east from the west, that links the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country. This bridge has been an engineering feat that was built years ago by engineers, I believe by the engineering corps. And it's been around. This is one of the places, this is one of the landmarks that Asaba is known for. The other end is Asaba, where on the Onitsha side of it, even as the cars go through, you see a lot of trucks, you see a lot of cars that are laden with lots of goods, and these are the cars that we have that carry most of the commerce that goes across. There isn't a rail system currently that goes through this area. It goes through the western part of the country, but this Niger Bridge is one of the landmarks in Nigeria and one of the landmarks that Asaba and Onitsha are known for. So once more, we're on the Niger Bridge itself. In fact, I can feel it moving beneath my feet as the cars go across. If you look, as you can see from the other part, you see the pillars that go down into the water. This bridge has been around for years. The road still looks good. The beams are looking good. They're strong. On this far side is where we have Asaba, and on this side you see Onitsha as we came up from the other end. A lot of the commerce that's going on from the other side here are all the cars that are going in and out. They're going from Asaba side to Onitsha side and vice versa. This Niger Bridge is one of the main monuments that the east or the southern part of Nigeria is known about, and one side of it is in Asaba and the other side is in Onitsha. In fact, if you look through on some parts of the water out here, you can see there's a port that's been built there that's to offload ships. I don't know how much is being used, but just like a lot of setups, a lot of things that have been built here, but they haven't been used or they haven't been put to maintenance. The maintenance culture here, I must say, is not very good. But if there's one thing that stands to that, the maintenance culture of this bridge has stood so far the test of time without challenge. You can see a bit of Asaba on that far side. All that way down is where Asaba is. And when we go out from the other side, you see a bit of it and see how much of Asaba is all that way. Where the Niger Bridge meets it over there, all of that area is Asaba. And then, of course, on the other side of the water, as you see, you get Onitsha and some other surrounding towns. Okay. We're on the Asaba side of the Niger Bridge, and behind me you can see the bridge as far as it goes. Beautiful perspective shot. Very soon we're going to go a bit closer to show you the beams that are actually holding it. From this bottom part, if I step out of the way, you can see the beams that hold the Niger Bridge. They look pretty solid to me, and like I said, you know, in spite of the fact that a lot of edifices that are built in Nigeria as a whole, and sometimes even in this area that have been built from time, a lot of them have stood the test of time. The Niger Bridge is certainly one of them, and which is a good testament to the work that's been done here in Asaba. But this bridge is a pretty good fit. Being on top of it, I can tell you, it's quite a sight. but it's definitely something to, if you have the opportunity to visit, if you come down to Asaba. Down here on this side, you can see the water. We're on the Asaba side of it now. Everything here moving from what we showed you before is Asaba. As you can see, even on both sides of the street, there's still the street lamps, a new development by the current administration in Asaba. We are now on the Cable Point side, or towards the bridgehead side of Nebisi Road.
Cable Point, which has its name from being the spot where the communication cables landed in Asaba, was the place to be, overlooking the picturesque sandy beach paradise, handcuffed in select domes by the majestic, clean flowing Niger. Cable Point increasingly attracted the Europeans, the Irish priests and the nuns, the trading barons of the Niger, John Holt, and indeed the makers of modern Nigeria. Sir Odumegwu Ojukwu, the commander of the Biafran army, is said to have made his first income selling pieces of chalk and pencils to his classmates at Asaba. Some say that Chris Okibo, one of Nigeria's revered poets, started his trade as a pupil in Cable Point. Ekemezie Ikejani, the father of the late Okechukwu Ikejani, the man that built the enduring Nigerian railways. He was at the Anglican mission in Cable Point. The Justice of the World Court, Justice Mbanefo and family, owned and operated the gas station at Strub Street, Cable Point. Among the prominent Asaba families resident in Cable Point at this time included the Edoziers, the Justice of the Supreme Court, the late Chike Idibe, the late Justice Ucheomo of the Nigerian Supreme Court, the Federal Permanent Secretaries, the Okudiafos, the Asiodus, Mordis and the Monos, including the former Midwest State Accountant General Fred Monos, the Asingis, the Rapos, the Police Chief Gobbo and his descendants. Chief J.I.G. Onyea was then the Federal Minister for the Navy. Eugene Oba was the Mayor of Enugu, and of course, Chief Dennis Osadebe had acted as the President of Nigeria before assuming office as the Premier of the Midwestern Nigeria. Today, Cable Point is a shadow of its old self, overtaken by development elsewhere in Asaba. What seems like an exodus of a vibrant young generation, many children of the former intelligentsia and progressives to other nations and cities, has given birth to an economic downturn in the lives of many indigents. Armed robbery and systemic corruption are rampant occurrences today.
Today, other than what was known as just the 5 quarters of Asaba and then Cable Point, we also have other areas of what is now the West End. This is one of the areas where you have a lot of the government establishments, the new courthouse, the new parliament building, and then you have the governor's quarters, and hopefully we'll be able to stop over and take a look at some of these buildings. So you can see that, as we said, this once sleepy town is truly awakening, and so many people are coming into this town now. We can't just say that Asaba is just for Asaba people any longer. You now have so many different ethnicities and different people who have become a part of Asaba, and they're helping to develop it. And this town is truly becoming a wonderful metropolis, a mecca, as some would say, of new development. But they almost have said that, they haven't felt the influence of the oil money as it's been the capital of Delta State. But one thing is true. There is a lot of change here. There's a lot of capital and a lot of development that's going on. You look around, you can see so many banks. Virtually every bank in Nigeria that is any bank has set up a base here. And that says a lot for a town that is growing. And though development, as we know in different parts of the world, does bring some sort of gentrification, one thing we do like is that a lot of good things are coming to this town of Asaba. Some of these areas have some beautiful architecture that we'll be taking a look, as you see right behind me. Even by the side, you see the way they've created a median, and at night, the night shots that you see these places with the lights, it's a beautiful sight to see. Something that even if you hadn't been to Asaba for the last 5 years, is definitely a thing to come down and take a look at, because this place is beginning to truly look like a city. right here on the side here, we have a hotel that's called Nero's. It's a new hotel. Nice place. I've been there myself, taking a look, and we'll take you through there so you see what it looks like. There's several other new hotels that have been established in Asaba that to house some of the influx of people, both governmental staff and other businesses that are coming into the town. To the left here we have the government house. I don't know if we'll be able to get inside, but I'm hoping we may have a chance to be able to take a look at it for you to see the new government house in Asaba. The current administration has, done something to really establish, real expanse of land and a whole establishment of almost a campus in there. But it's a beautiful site. It's definitely a beautiful site.
Asaba is a part of the Niger Delta, flanked to the south by the Bight of Benin. It's rich with natural resources. Though farming, fishing, and other industries are present, the main cash cow is black gold, namely oil. With the average income per family being below $2 to $5 per day, about 250 to 300 naira here, the oil boom is seen by many as a personal gain for the political elite and the well-connected, than it is a systemic gain. One wonders why. From administration to political administration, the hopes of this historic city have been postponed. Today, Asaba is the capital of Delta State, housing the state legislature, the executive branch, and the judiciary. Many wonder when the benefits of oil wealth will water down to the man on the street.
Behind me is one of the industries that used to employ a lot of people in Asaba here, the Asaba textile mill. For those who do not know, this is shut down now. So for the most part, there isn't a big industry like the textile mill any longer in Asaba. A lot of people were laid off when this textile mill was shut. I believe it was bought by one of the company, an Indian company. Across the country, in fact, a lot of textile mills have been shut down as there is what they call consolidation or privatization. But obviously, some of the challenges of this is that individual cities and towns like this lose the labor that comes from a diverse market option. So this is one of the challenges that places like this are dealing with when it comes to modernity. But behind me, as you can see, is now a desolate space. It's no longer used so far. But we're expecting and hoping that with the boom that's coming to Asaba today, more and more industries will move into this town to employ a lot of the very young people who are turning more into nefarious ways of surviving because there is no labor.
The irony of development, politics, and tradition in Asaba is that the streets are clean. New buildings are fast filling the former green landscapes of Asaba. A new modern market has been built out of the ashes of the last. A new airport is in the works. Hotels, businesses are all springing up, and these are but a few signs of development, which many say is but a trickle. The incessant power outage, a national challenge, I must say, has not helped matters, as the young lack the focus and drive to combat the temptations of quick wealth and ill-gotten gains. What was once tradition has quickly become extortion, as economic survival has taken precedence over honor, virtue, and character. Sadly, Asaba is not alone in this malaise.
If I got one, Ezra Fakego, a good name is better than gold. Look at all the people about photography. What's if even I don't know Abuja? When I don't know all in Abuja, only when I come over, I feel we'll be going to blaze what I'm model. If I first have.
Behind me here you see one of the streams. This is the Awan River, a beautiful stream. There used to be a bridge here. The bridge has been broken for quite a while. A lot of users, people use it whether for bathing, kids come to play in the stream, people wash their cars over there. But it's a beautiful grove. One of the most interesting things about this place is that you notice that we have somewhat like a bamboo grove of a sort. A beautiful place. Natural streams like this are things that dot all over Asaba area. You can see somebody there who's showing off with their swimming skills. You have a lot of people like that. You have a lot of these, and there's a lot of nature here. There's a lot of nature, a lot of communing with nature. A beautiful look as you see the skies, as you see the river, as you see the grove, places you can relax. Just follow me as we go. You can see this place here usually when, come on down, come on closer. You can see this place. This is one of those areas that when it's hot, which is sometimes gets around here, you get people come down here and cool off with the shade. If you come down here a little closer, you can see the water. It's almost clear. And, you know, people come around here. Sometimes, you know, people even fish in these areas. But it's a beautiful sight. It's somewhere that really you can kick back. And there's several of these all around Asaba area. Several of these kind of places where you can kick back. Right behind me there's a shack where you can enjoy some palm wine, some fruits, places where you can relax. There's so much of these. Some have been developed, some have not been. But in time, I believe that this beauty, this natural beauty, as long as we can maintain it, is one of the gems that we can truly say that Asaba people have in this area.
What makes a people? What keeps them united in their tradition? Is it the past and the present, forging a clear path for the future? As we follow the footprints of the many stories that make up this tradition across Nigeria, across Africa, we are reminded of the duty we all have to those who have journeyed and sacrificed before us, to preserving their service, their understanding, and to celebrate their achievements. To build a sustainable future on the stem of a robust study and understanding of our history is our lot and responsibility today. This is Chike Kanayomo with Footprints.